Hey, everybody, welcome to the podcast. I'm your host, Chris Kent, the Game Master, or GM for short. And I've mentioned this in previous videos, but I'm not the only GM we've ever had. The first GM was my mom in 1985. She ran DC Heroes for me and my friends for the first couple years. The second GM was Wayne Birch, who owned the local comic book store. The third GM was Greg Sheets. He took over around 1989. After him was Jay Mora from 1990 through 1994, which was our high school years. Then when we graduated, Jay went into the Army and I took over as GM. So this year marks my 30th year behind the GM screen. So I wanted to take a look back at some major moments from the history of our game. And today's video is all about the Eldar. Before I dive in, I should probably say that Jay did his 4 years in the Army, and then after he got out, he moved to England around Y2K, where he actually got a job working for Games Workshop. None of the rest of us played Warhammer, so when he'd come home to America on vacation and would run games for us, we didn't know it at the time, but he was putting a lot of Warhammer concepts into our game. Then after he'd go back to England, we'd add to his ideas but take them in other directions because we'd assumed they were just original ideas that Jay had. So that said, Warhammer 40K players will probably be the first people to hear this and say, you're running it wrong. So that's why I bring this up. We're not actually trying to run Warhammer. The stuff in this video was just partially inspired by Warhammer. Anyways, I feel like that's enough of a disclaimer. So let's get into the actual story. A long time ago, in a galaxy far, far away, two of the first alien races came to be. One race was the Catan, while the other were simply known as the Old Ones. The Catan were like parasites. They would drain stars of their energy like cosmic vampires. The Old Ones were extremely psychic, possessing phenomenal cosmic power. The Old Ones civilization reached its height around 60 million BC. The Catans' hunger never ceased, and they became aware of the Old Ones and their seemingly boundless cosmic nature. So the Catans started to think about eating the Old Ones. Perhaps then their endless hunger could finally be satisfied. And so the Catans stumbled upon a lesser race called the Necrons. The Necrons hailed from a planet that orbited a harsh star that constantly showered their world with radiation. And as such, the Necrons were forever sick and lived shockingly short lifespans. On this planet, the living were merely the temporary custodians of ever-growing tomb cities and rolling cemetery fields. The race's entire theme was death, from the day they were born to the day they died. The Catan approached the Necrons, promising power if they would become their servants. The Catan also offered new bodies that would finally be free of pain and their notoriously short lifespan. So the Necrons were quick to agree. So that said, the Catan assimilated them. In DC Heroes, by the way, there's body, mind, and spirit. Body is physical, mind is mental, and spirit is mystical. That said, what the Catan failed to mention was during the assimilation process, the Necrons' spirits were consumed by the Catan. But as promised, their body was now pain-free and made of metal. Each Necron more or less looked like a Terminator now. And they still had their mind and their memories, but now they lacked any sense of warmth or compassion. And as the heralds of the Catan, they were given a mission: destroy the Old Ones so that they could be devoured by their masters. The response of the Old Ones was to go to Earth and abduct cavemen. Experiments were performed and genes were spliced. Through genetic engineering, the Old Ones created the Eldar. The Eldar looked mostly human in the sense that they were flesh and blood, had 2 legs, 2 arms, etc. But they had been granted a portion of the cosmic power that the Old Ones held. And as such, the Eldar were insanely powerful warriors. And so when the Necrons attacked, the Eldar defended their masters. The Eldar and the Necrons became archenemies, and a massive war raged through the heavens for ages. To the shock of all involved, the day eventually came when the Old Ones got tired of all this, and they simply left. The Old Ones had substituted their psychic powers for dimension travel. They opened a warp portal and fled into the plane of thought itself, a realm with an intrinsic link to their mental abilities. As for the Catan, they had bet everything on the idea that they would win and devour the Old Ones. But now victory had been stolen from them, and they'd spent all their resources on the war, so the Catan left too. Their heralds, the Necrons, had one job, and now that they couldn't do it, they all went into hibernation in their tombs, awaiting the day when the Catan might return, if ever. But until that day, they each looked like a metal skeleton in a high-tech sarcophagus. So that leaves us with the Eldar. They too had one job, and they couldn't do it now. So the Eldar didn't know what to do with themselves. They ended up using their own psychic powers to open a portal into the realm of thought. And for a time, they searched for the Old Ones, but the Old Ones were never seen again. And after a while, the Eldar got tired of looking for them. As humanity grew on Earth, their various thoughts and dreams affected the realm of thought, which became known as the dreaming. The Eldar were affected by the dreaming in more ways than one. Not only did the dreaming affect their powers, but it also had an effect on the Eldar minds. For instance, if human men dreamed of beautiful women, then the Eldar developed a greater interest in beauty and love. And for that matter, the dreams and desires of humanity sculpted the Eldar physically, making them more beautiful and desirable. Unfortunately, the Eldar became decadent. They began forming what were known as pleasure cults, dedicated to the pursuit of every pleasure and sensation that life had to offer their kind. But some Eldar saw this moral decline and chose to leave. So they exited the dreaming in search of a better way. A particularly noteworthy Eldar ship went to Earth, where they wound up in ancient Ireland, and the locals referred to them as the Tuatha De Danann. But that's another story for another day. For now, I think this is a pretty good point to stop. I hope you enjoyed hearing about how we do things in our role-playing game. If so, and you'd like to support the channel, be sure to hit like, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell to be notified when I upload more videos, and leave us a comment. And until next time, take care, everybody. Bye.